Hi, everyone. This is Simon with ToughTrader.com doing a trade review of really what the low looked like today and what the characteristics of the low were, hopefully in an effort to identify it. So going forward in the future. So what I want to do is start from the beginning of the day, take 1 or 2 minutes to rebuild what we were looking at in the markets, why we were thinking what we were thinking, and then how we traded it, but more specifically, what this bottom looked like here at the low, right? So let's kind of go and check up on what the clues were. So to start with, first we're going to go to the points of control. Okay, so here's NQ. So every day we do the same process, right? It's boring, but it helps us understand what we're looking for in terms of a trade setup, right? So you have value area low, you have value area high, right? And we're just going to do this pretty blazingly fast. In order to push lower, you wanted two things. So in order for this to look bearish, what you would have wanted is open, push into value area low, fail, get below the prior day's low. Oh, sorry, guys. Let's start over. Start one more time. Wasn't showing the screen. So what you would have wanted, value area high, value area low, prior day's low, right? So the weakest would have been a gap below prior day's low, push up, failure to get to prior day's low, and test down into that 67.51. Obviously, that didn't happen, and we had Globex low land somewhere here around 68. This is Globex low around 6,800, if I recall correctly, and I'm pretty sure that's right. Okay, so that did not happen. We got into value area low. The next logical location, as I pointed out earlier, was between the TPO point of control and the volume point of control. That happened. Look how the market treated it on a 30-minute basis. Because if you understand it on the higher time frame, you understand it on the smaller time frame. We opened up, we held the butt, we opened below prior day's low, immediately trapped back in, backside tested, right? Rejected out of the TPO point of control, then accelerated up and just past the point of control to where we had the last anomaly, right? Last anomaly gets fixed. Auction completed to the upside. Important concept. Auction completed to the upside. We roll all the way down. Now we break the swing low, right? Once we broke this low, we wanted two things to happen. If you think about this from a strategic standpoint, you wanted 66.8975 to hold, right? Why? You've broken below the low for the second time. You didn't want to get back above 66.8975. Why? Because that's not bearish. If you're trying to get a push to the downside, you're underneath value area, you're back below the prior day's low, you're thinking, hey, this is where I get my extension to the downside, right? So if we go look at what happened at NQ during that time, what you'll see, that push below occurs right here. This is the second push lower right here. So when you look at that same time frame, right, which is occurring right here, the first thing you'll notice is this is the first push below. This is 1110, right? 1110, 1110. Notice this is the deepest negative tick of the morning after the open, but it's the deepest negative close. First thing that when you look to the left, what you will notice is we failed to close below, even though we tested below. And a lot of this stuff is easier in rear view mirror, even though we were looking for it. We weren't short through here. Some of us were long, but a lot of this is easier. It's harder to recognize it in real time. The goal is to get up into real time as quickly as you can and have these thought processes going through your head, right? So number one, we could not get and hold below prior day's low on the biggest negative tick. Secondly, when we bounced up, so this is the first bounce, we kind of expected that. That was no shock. Made perfect sense. Some of us even got the short out of this location, right? But look at the second test down. ES comes almost all the way down to the low. Tick improves. We're unable to break the second low, unable to hold below the low in the first hour. And we're unable to even retest really the mid of this rotation back. We can't get past the mid. Look how much stronger NQ is on this test back, right? So there's your next clue through that process. And next, let's go over to the algo real quick. When we look at the algo, and one thing you got to remember is when you're doing all this, man, it's hard to keep your brain wrapped around this whole function. But when you look at the low, this is the algo on NQ. So this is our push down into the low right here. Okay, so that's our NQ push to the low. You can see there's really heavy selling through here. That's what the red without explaining everything, that's a really heavy sell pressure. But you'll notice into the low, we lose this. So this is kind of becomes our last line of defense. So let me erase this the way I was looking at. This becomes, this little area right here became the last place where they pushed lower. And what I think I said when I was there was that if we got above that, right, that would become support. And you can see how it treated it. See, when we pushed up into resistance, they pushed all the way through and rolled all the way back down, right? But then what you'll see is we flipped, and this is really rare. We got sell signals as we were pushing up. And it's really pretty rare. Usually you get the sell signal on the pressure on the way down, right? That's what all this stuff that's firing off here to the left is. So once we got above, so notice what we did. We get above this establishes a new swing high. This is the last swing right over here. This establishes a new swing high. We do a 50-60 back. And you can see once we get over the bulk of the last bit of selling, right? What happened was people said, oh man, we're breaking down. And what people saw here, so this is a really small time frame bar-wise, but that's basically what they saw was that's a trend line break, and we are pressing heavily on that trend line break is what it is. And so once you got above these last people that panicked here, we ended up setting the low delta somewhere right in here. And once we got above that low delta, and then we got above this last sell, and notice where the sells came back in. See what someone did? They said, hey, I had sellers over here to the left. I can come back in here and sell against this. But once we closed above this last group of sellers here, all these guys, meaning this set of guys, this set of guys, this guy, and this guy, they all said, wow, I'm out of luck. We got to cover. If they didn't pick up on the fact that we had a higher low here, and now we have a higher high, and now we have a new higher high, and that's what generates that push to the upside, right? So this is why it's so important. You can see where all the buying came in over here, all these little green notes here. This is where all the buying has come in. We've now made it above the swing high, and we should be able to push out from here. I don't know if we have enough energy left or this is exhaustion, but just like this formulated my buyers at the bottom, these are now my buyers, my sellers at the bottom. These are now my sellers at the top, and I have to get, my buyers at the top, and I have to get back below this to make this resistance, right? So this is now gone. This is done. It's been handled. Now the question is, if I get up underneath this last group of buyers through here, that's what will set up my potential rotation back to the downside. I think if we trap back into the 69.28, and that is not a bearish formation. That's all I can tell you. If it can break back above this trend line, any backside test, and I was just saying in the room, anything back from 69.12 all the way down to 69.02, any of this is good trade location for a push back to the upside, right? So what were the characteristics at the low? Let's review those one more time. And before, and I forget, because I'm doing this in the middle of the day, so let me post this real quick. Past performance is not indicative of future results. This is for educational purposes only. I'm sharing my trade plan with you in hopes that it'll make you a better trader. At any rate, that's my that is my 2 cents. Please do not follow me blindly. My goal is to teach traders how to become better traders. It's not to be a trade caller in and of itself. I want you to be able to identify and learn what your trade setups are and execute them at a high level. That is my goal. So again, you can see the clear break. You can see where, and the one thing I kept mentioning up here, remember when we, guys, for this the guys in the room, remember when I was over here and I was like, look, buy pressure, we had the buy pressure off that low there, but then it all disappeared up here. So see when the characteristic changed, see how we had buy pressure, sell pressure, buy pressure, sell pressure against buy pressure. But see how we went into this long period of void where there was no buy pressure or sell pressure between 921 and 948 as we were hitting the highs. Nice job, Ron. Nice job. Nice job. I have nothing but a tip of a hat to that for you. That's a great job. So when we were up here, see how all these guys disappeared? Notice on every other time we had increasing buy pressure through here, and then the buy pressure disappears, right? And then the sell pressure comes in, and then notice we break underneath, and notice we get no buy pressure all the way on this dip. It's the first dip where we get no introduction of buy pressure. And that's when everyone panics and rolls to the downside, right? Notice that you could have waited for that first break and roll underneath your last swing, right? You could have waited for the disappearance of any buy pressure, right? And then waited for the appearance of the sell pressure to come in before you ever took a long and rolled to the downside. And then we get our stretch, right? And now all of a sudden you see the reappearance of the buy pressure at the low. And then I think the telltale there was when they tried to short it against this resistance point, which frankly made sense. If you were going to look for a continuation lower and you're over here, waiting till we got back over here made perfect sense. But as soon as we got above, you see the buy pressure resume, and then everyone gets squeezed out short for the push to the upside. Really, truly awesome, right? Now let's go look at ES, which had a little bit different characteristic really quickly. So on ES, if you will recall, okay, we had a couple characteristics. Number one, value area high, value area low, right? Prior day's low. So once we came in, look how the 30-minute broke out. Once we got back below here, so the first story was once we got back below, you wanted to consolidate underneath. On days when we break out, we consolidate underneath prior day's low, and we break to the downside. Did not happen, right? Second, we came to the TPO, which was the white zone, and the volume pointing control, rejected out. What we thought would be the target where we get a first response would have been this area down here. And so Dalton says something pretty interesting, which is when you don't get to where you thought you should get to, right? When you don't get to where you think you should get to and the market reverses for no reason, right? That is a warning that you're about to launch a big rotation back to the upside, right? Additionally, if we look at the evidence that's provided for us on the daily chart, right? When we look at this, right, as we're pushing into the low, we get the low print of the day, but notice on the biggest negative tick of the day from a print standpoint, we cannot close below the main body from the first 5-minute bar, right? And so what's required? I say this every day. In order to roll lower, we got to get below the first 5-minute bar almost every day, right? So there was a good short from above. We filled the gap, auction completed. We come all the way back, and they press really hard. Now look when they come back. Look at the divergence. Even though we didn't hit a new low, there was no juice there. On the low, this is Globex high that we were back under. As soon as we close back above Globex high, backside test, unable to get back below, and push. Now remember I said before I left for lunch in the room, if you're looking for a short, you want the backside test of 2708, 2710, and you don't want to see it close above 2710. Really, that kind of ends any threat of the move to the downside, right? And that's exactly what happened. They flipped it on you when they got it above 2710. They flipped it and were able to push straight to the upside. So what did that look like from the algo standpoint, right? So I know you'll see a lot of noise there, but it interprets pretty nicely. So let me stretch this out. So the first thing that you'll notice, we're going to take this chunk by chunk. Let's make it bigger. Not what I wanted. Let's get rid of all these silly lines. Really? Okay. So the first characteristic you'll notice is from this morning. Let's first talk about the push to the upside, right? So you'll see this morning, we started with sell attempts all the way down, and we never got any buy attempts. But notice when you have sell pressure, when you're seeing sell pressure, so here's the buy pressure, here's the sell pressure. We get underneath, and we have absolutely no buy pressure. But notice we get above our last group of sellers, right? There's always a last group of sellers. We get above those guys this morning, right? That's our last group of sellers. There's the algo firing off, right? And notice we backside test them. And notice they're pushing still here. See up here, there was really what this was an absence of sellers on this push up. So the guys who were selling try to use these guys over here, try to come back in and push down below. But notice once we get, so this is the first buy attempt we get in here. That's hiding right there, right? We get below that guy, and then they press back below. So they slam. So these guys, look, if you were short down here and you pushed all the way up here and we come all the way back, you're going to be like, hey, I'm grateful to cover. I was just getting smoked to the upside, right? Think how you would feel if you were short down there and you didn't cover. You're going to go and say, I'm going to cover that position. Now, next, this is where it becomes important. See how we were pressing up and there was no buy pressure up here, and they just let it go. There was no buy pressure or sell pressure. It was nothing. It was a pretty light move, right? Oh, wait, I apologize. I'm coming in too late. Forgive me. Here, let's do this one more time. Here, we'll see it. There we go. I was covering the overnight, and I should have been covering the day session. Forgive me. It almost looked the same. Here we go. So remember this morning. Let's start again. I apologize. Here was all our buy pressure to the left. I'm sorry. There's 739, 821. We open up. We drive straight up. Notice the lack of buy algos all the way up. Notice this is our first buy or sell algo that at least triggers on my machine right here. And you notice they immediately fall away. There was not much of a battle. You were either in it and decided we exhausted in this area, or you weren't. There was not much in between. There was a yellow zone up here. So this, right, because that's a very small bar, right, is this right here. This is the first punch into the white zone. We expect rejection from the white zone. So what happened? We made an impulse move down. We backside test. Sellers step in, right? But then notice on the way down, they don't really increase their position. We're just going to scroll this to the right, right? And then notice when you're getting lower, right? All of a sudden right here, see this? I end up with buy program. Buy program. We try to push below those guys with the buy program with the sell program. See that right there? That guy right there, that is your last seller. That guy, this little piece of work right here, this is your last seller. We get above. You see the buy programs kick in. Now watch on the rotation. See on the rotation down, we didn't have any heavy sellers come in, which doesn't mean it can't roll down. We just didn't have any sellers. This guy right here becomes your last heavy seller. Once you close above this group of sellers right here on this push, once you close above them, it's all over at that point. That's that 27.8 to 27.10. You'll see the first close even on a small bar. Oh, you can't see it. Sorry, let me push it back. I apologize. I'll do that for you one more time. This is your last group of sellers up here. Once we're in the hole, see when we pushed up, see how buyer steps in, last seller. So this guy's your ace in the hole, because once you get above him, right, see how immediately buyer steps in. And now this 27.10, which was your earlier consolidation, 27.08 to 27.10, that's what we tried to hold early in the morning. We reject out of there initially. We get back above, backside test that same area. Now notice, there's still a lack of buyers or sellers here. Everyone's waiting. But notice on the impulse move up, look at the buy programs that kick in. You see this? And there's buy program, buy program, buy program. There's three in a row right there. 1, 2, 3. Buy programs, and not a single sell program all the way through here, right? So the diamonds do denote information for me, but they're not automatic sells for me. What I know is I do not want to sell until I see, or I don't want to be aggressive short until I see some of these bars set up. At a minimum, I want to see that they're at least showing me that they're having ability to sell. Neither market has shown me that ability, so that's what the low looks like. So we combine two pieces that weren't very important. The very small picture, that's this. The very large picture, at least for me, the 5-minute time frame, that shows me, hey, they really pressed on tick, unable to break the first 5-minute low, pushed back up, pushed again, down on lower tick. We break our last swing high, and as the market has been characteristically all the way through this market, we tend to simply make the U-turn and go in one direction, and so that's been very, very difficult. Anyways, that's my 2 cents, guys. I hope that helps out. If you liked the video, please hit the like button. this business is not that hard if you take it step by step and you let the market develop for you. And that would be the information I would have for you. So anyways, if you'd like to join us, I will post a link to tomorrow morning's meeting. And I hope everyone had a great day and got paid. I would not short this move to the upside because they look like they're about ready to rip everyone's face off into the close. We are testing value area high, but I'd be very shocked if that contains us. So anyways, that's my 2 cents. I hope everyone has a wonderful day. Quite an incredible market. Pick your places carefully, guys. Have a good night.